Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I want to introduce you all again to a wonderful conversation that I had with Lady C and the new updated version of her book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, Persecutors or Victims. Sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee, and enjoy my lovely conversation with Lady C. Okay, so in the beginning of the book, you write about, and this is something that I remember when I watched the documentary on Queen Mary, okay, that royals must remember, as Queen Mary put it, that they love visiting hospitals and that they are no longer there by divine right. This is Queen Mary speaking. And then Queen Elizabeth seconds this later. You mentioned that there's no longer there by divine right, but with the consent of the people whom they serve, as Queen Elizabeth put it. Now, I'm thinking this is something that Harry should have already known, considering this is the history of the monarchy. You're there because you serve the people. And then when I look at Harry and Meghan doing their rounds of fake charity, I believe that they are doing this because they know this to be the only way that they can really exist within their privilege. But Meghan is trying to turn their royal existence into a celebrity brand, which is self-serving and not people-serving. What are your thoughts on that, and would you agree?
Oh, I certainly agree. I think she's a crass and vulgar opportunist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the cynical way in which she milks even her supposed acts of charity,
Mm-hmm.
no question of giving quietly when she can broadcast. And I mean, even the hospital visit recently, royals, when they visit hospitals, the focus is on the patient. The focus isn't on, look at how wonderful I am. And, you go from bed to bed or patient to patient. You don't have ill people lined up as an audience while you are starring in the show, which is precisely what she did.
Yeah.
And it's just so obvious that her many acts of charity are all about bigging up herself.
Do people realize that, or do they really? I mean, I think in the UK they can realize it, but I'm almost not sure that those in America would see it as that because we're not used to the royal, because we don't have that going to hospitals, highlighting your work, working with people in hospitals. My concern is that she's doing this for the American audience.
Yes, she is doing it for the American audience. And
Mm-hmm.
she's doing it to create an impression of herself as being altruistic instead of what she is, which is grasping and rapacious. And I have no idea, because I don't live in America, to
Mm-hmm.
what extent Americans are duped. But I would have thought, of what I have been told, the average American doesn't really care whether Meghan and Harry live or die. So it's really a matter of complete indifference to them whether this woman uses people to get herself column inches. I don't think it has much of an impact on the average American. And I don't think it has any impact anymore on her target audience, which is really the business people and accountants and CEOs and managers who are in the entertainment industry or are in the commercial world, who she is hoping will flip out their checkbooks and write her fat checks. I think she is already a busted flush.
Hmm. I would have to agree. I think she's trying to save face and trying to still keep it above water at this point. I think it's not going to take off for her. It just seems so disingenuous when you watch her. And I think people can pick up on that, especially those in Hollywood, because
Mm.
they can see a grifter. I mean, all the negative press she's gotten, even in America, has pretty much set her course for anything that she decides to do in the States.
Well, I have friends who are Hollywood royalty, and they have been telling me that nobody of any consequence wants to touch her. And I mean, Ari Emanuel has sort of wheeled out WME clans to
Hmm.
lend support, and it's not worked. I mean, it's
Right.
been a year now. They've not closed one deal of any substance. And, everything rebounds because people have a nose not only for phoniness, but for failure.
Hmm.
And I'm afraid she stinks of both artificiality and failure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so writing this book has been the greatest thing, I think, to bring up a lot of past things or things that we have been talking about. Give me your motivation for writing this updated version of the book.
Well, a part of this to me is very personal
Mhm.
because, of course, as you know, I'm Jamaican,
Mhm.
and Jamaicans are generally vested in a racial harmony. I've
Yeah.
never met I've never met a Jamaican who wasn't,
Mhm.
unless of course they were using the race card the way, say, Michael Manley used to use it for political advantage. But
Mhm.
that's very rare, even amongst his own party followers. Most and being Jamaican, I am approached the African and the West Indian diplomats, if I go to reception, and they usually come up to me. I don't know who they are, but they know who I am. And they
Mhm.
say, keep up the good work. This woman has been so poisonous and done so much damage, and she needs to be exposed. And unless she is exposed as the very dangerous and damaging mischief maker that she will, the damage that she done cannot be reversed. And in fact, I think because of people like you and me, and because this has not been addressed in the mainstream media, this has been addressed on the internet. And the revelations as to what she really is as a human being and what her game plan is has not really come from the mainstream media. So, it's ironic that Harry is trying to shut down the mainstream media in the United Kingdom because, of course, he knows that they know an awful lot about him and Meghan that so far they have not revealed. But also, they, via the Aspen Institute, etc., they also want to control the internet because a lot of the light that has been shone on both their conduct has been as a result of people on the internet. And and my motivation for updating the book was that I've listened to a lot of these diplomats. I was very au fait with what went on with the debacle in Jamaica in William and Catherine's Jubilee visit. Because of
Right.
course I know most of the people involved, or know friends of mine know them very well. So I knew exactly what went on and why it went on. And I also am very au fait with what happened in terms of the Bob Marley fiasco and how Andrew Holness, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, who's got a lot of flack in England, and or I should say in Britain, and rather unfairly, that he's anti-monarchist. He's not anti-monarchist. He feels that he would like to have a homegrown head of state. It's no reflection against the respect that the average Jamaican has for the British monarchy. Now, I don't happen to agree with him. I helped to get him elected. I even did a video in support of him. And I have a lot of respect for Andrew Holness as a prime minister. But, and I also know that he was very reluctant to even meet and greet Meghan and Harry. He didn't know they were coming. They were add-ons at the 99th hour. And after the premiere, there was an after party at Terra Nova, which is a five-star hotel that used to be Chris Blackwell's mother's house. Now, Chris Blackwell is one of the characters in Bob Marley One Love. He is the white Jamaican who put Bob Marley on the map. He created Island Records. He and Dickie Jobson were the creators of Island Records. Dickie was a childhood friend of mine. Chris's mother and my grandmother were cousins.
Oh, okay.
And I spoke to a lot of people who were involved, and nobody wanted to associate with Meghan. Nobody wanted to speak to Meghan. They were delighted to speak to Harry, but nobody wanted to speak to Meghan. Now, you're a woman of colour, and you will know that the one thing people of colour don't like is somebody who passed for white for many years and trots out being black and browns up when it suits her. But makes sure that everybody knows that that's not really her colour, because the part is whiter than white, and the neck remains white, and the hands and the arms and the legs remain white, but the face is brown. And, you know, Jamaicans find this sort of thing deeply objectionable. And Jamaicans also don't like phonies, and they also generally have great respect for family. Jamaicans are a very family-orientated society. And people have, from the word go, thought that, and I said it in my original book, and I think I've said it in this version as well, that Meghan's biggest mistake would prove to be the way she had mistreated her father. Because people all over the world understand all families have issues, but you don't trash your family. And not only has she trashed her own family, and she made them figures of ridicule and set them up to be abused. And she actually, her father believes that she set up the whole of the debacle that led to his two heart attacks. And he also has confirmed to me that she never sent him an invitation. He's yet to receive an invitation to the wedding. And when he asked her, knowing that Doria had received one, she said, well, it must have got lost in the post. I mean, that's the sort of thing that a con man tells to his victim. Right. You know, the checks in the post. I mean, the invitations in the post. And
so, he was enemy from the beginning. I mean, once she married, or when it wanted to marry Harry, because she knew that she'd be exposed, right? I mean,
that's right. She wanted to keep her family well away because she understood, and they have told me this, and they have figured it out for themselves. But I said it in my first version of the book, because I figured it out as well, that they understood, well, she understood, that if they were there, they would inadvertently expose her as the liar that she was, because she led Harry to believe that she was self-made, that she had conquered adversity, that she had put herself through school and university. She even said it in her first major public speech in Fiji. I mean, she outright lied.
Yes.
And then also, what she did, which I thought was inexcusable, was, I mean, I know that neither the king nor Catherine said anything racist. And there was also the possibility of them trying to float that Princess Anne had said something. But they sort of alighted now. But remember, Harry in the Oprah interview said, one conversation before we were married. She said several conversations while she was pregnant with Harry, with Archie. So right there, they can't even agree on the when, where, why, how, or how many
Right.
of their foremost accusation. And I take the view that being a public figure myself, and I've been in the public eye for 50 years, and I know how dreadful it is to be lied about and to be on the front pages of gutter press newspapers. And it is extremely defiling. And I just thought, this is inexcusable behavior. And she should not be allowed to get away with it. And I've made the point in my book, which I think is a very important point, that even if there had been racial issues within the family, they had allowed her to marry into the family. They had given her a huge wedding. And these were matters that should have been resolved privately within the family. By going public, and I'm speaking about if it had been true, and none of it is true, right. But even if it had been true, it was inexcusable. It's treachery, it's disloyalty. It is the lowest form of bad behavior. And people all over the world have picked up on this. And, so for all those reasons, I thought, no, I'm going to update the book. And people were asking me over the last few, please update the book. And I thought, right, because remember, my book was the first of the books.
Yes, it was, yeah.
And so I thought I would update it. And, as you know, I have access to information that the royal correspondents and journalists don't have. And
nor will they follow because, they follow when there is an embargo, right? Like you don't have to adhere to that. Is that... No, right.
I can do what I want.
Yes.
And I'm totally autonomous. And I do it is, as long as it is true and fair, I will do it. If I think it is something positive, that it's a good thing to do, I will do it. And I'm accountable to no one else but myself. They all have jobs to lose, or they have to suck up to some contact in the palace. I mean, I have no compunction about raking a senior courtier over the coals.
That's right. You tell them, Lady C. You tell them.
Well, I've done it,
That's right. You've told them, keep telling them, keep doing what you do, right? I mean, I'm sure, do they ever come to you and say, okay, don't tone it down, or do they try to muzzle you? I know you would never allow it, but just tell me about what they do, what's been done to you.
No. Are you speaking about the palace? The palace, no.
Well, any and everyone that could try to, because of the information that you have, because we know that in Great Britain, they have to follow certain, protocols, right? You don't have to adhere to these. So, like, what has your experience been like? Because I'm sure they've tried to muzzle you. They've tried to prevent you from coming out and speaking and saying things and perhaps even writing updates to the book you wrote, right?
Not at all. In fact,
they have not.
No, not at the press, the mainstream media. They've tried to, and they have, from the very word go, they were trying to do me in.
Okay.
But that was because I had access to information that they would have loved to have access to and didn't. So that's why I was able to write my first Diana book, which is the book that unmasked Diana. And that's how I was able to write the Meghan and Harry book, which is the book that actually did unmask them. And not saying that the other writers haven't come up with good material, because they have. But the fact of the matter is that I have, through my way of life and identity, let's put it that way, I have access that they don't have. And certainly the late Queen, notwithstanding the fact that I wrote a very penetrating biography of her mother, and I wrote the Meghan and Harry book, and I wrote the Diana book, she actually is the one who, I was the only writer, let me put it this way, I was the only writer who was chosen to write the script for her Jubilee celebrations in terms of the special edition of the stamps of 10 of the nations of which she was head of state. Oh. And then I also, I did her 95th birthday stamps, and then I did the Jubilee. And for the Jubilee, it says very clearly that in the publicity blurb, I've actually got it somewhere, that this is done with the consent and approval of Her Majesty the Queen.
Right.
So, I mean, if ever there was a message to be delivered to the public that I was not persona non grata, that was the message. But then the Queen understood. The Queen was a very sophisticated thinker. And she understood that I never reveal something that I shouldn't. I'm very responsible. I'm actually, believe it or not, very discreet. And I'm very responsible. And, you know, anything I reveal is something that will stand the test of time and is a necessary part of understanding the whole process. I make no pretense about it. I am very pro-monarchist. But I am not a suck-up merchant. I'm not a flatterer. I'm not an adulator. And I am a responsible biographer. So I am going to, what I write stands the test of time, and any material that I handle, which is controversial and delicate, I do in such a way that it ultimately is not going to undermine the institution that I happen to be a part of in many ways.
Okay. So with that, so in your book, you mentioned, I did not imagine the lengths to which they would go as to persuade an agenda, which was antithetical to everything the monarchy represents. I want to discuss with you this agenda, because I know this agenda that Meghan had that later Harry followed along with. I want to ask you, what is this agenda? If you could just talk about that agenda, because that could also affect the monarchy in a way, if in the beginning they kind of had to go along, or if they did go along with this agenda.
Well, the monarchy was obviously affected. You know, several of the diplomats would see me at receptions and come up to me and say to me, oh, you've got to continue doing what you're doing because they need to be stopped. They are causing havoc within the Commonwealth. They're creating such divisiveness, and they are undermining the support that the moderates have for good race relations. And their agenda, her agenda, I should say, has, in my view, from the very outset, been self-aggrandizement. She thought, wow, this is going to work for me. I can enter this family, and I'm going to make sure I don't fit in. And I'm going to make sure that I change things to the extent that it suits me. And I'm going to disrespect the institution, the protocols, the mores, the forms, the customs, and I'm going to make myself so unpopular that then I'm going to say, well, everybody's victimizing me because I basically want to go to Hollywood and fulfill my dreams of being a star. And I'm going to do it on the back of being a member of the royal family. And that's been her agenda clearly from the word go. And he was not about, 98% of the work that the royals do is really dull and boring.
Yeah.
The 2% that the public gets a glimpse of might be glamorous or occasionally arduous, but most of it is bread and butter boring stuff, but it matters to the people involved.
Yes.
She wasn't interested in doing any of that bread and butter stuff. She wanted the glitz and the glamour and the excitement, and let's have a premiere. But why would I go to school? And why would I cut ribbons? I mean, that's beneath me. I mean, as she said to Jessica Mulroney in Australia, I can't believe I'm not getting paid for this.
Right.
Of course she was getting paid, but just not in hard cash, but she wanted hard cash. This was all about Meghan's, and I mean, Meghan stated she wanted to be bigger than Diana. She wanted to have the largest Instagram account on earth. And she wanted to be tremendously rich. Those were her objectives. She stated it. And those were her instructions while she was in the royal family, that she wanted to have, on the back of that, have her ambitions achieved. And she set up the situation for them to leave, and she anticipated that they would be half in, half out. And the Queen is the one who put her foot down and said, no, you can't be half in and half out. And when they realized that they couldn't be in Hollywood and milk the system for 80% of the time, then come over here to top up their celebrity and prestige, to take it back to Hollywood and prostitute themselves and their royal status to make more money, because that was the name of the game. So she was enraged that how dare this 90-something-year-old woman, who does she think she is?
Right.
I'm Meghan Markle, star of Suits.
Yeah, that was her attitude. But this is the thing. But didn't the Queen say you could go and do your acting thing if you wanted to do that? Didn't she have a choice to just...
Yes, but the Queen said she didn't have to give up her career. But she chose. She said she chose to give up. She told them she wanted to be a team player. She said she wanted to do royal duties, then made sure she didn't. And has invented a whole host of reasons as to why everybody didn't like her, the British public didn't welcome her, the British public are racist. She was so abused by everybody. She had that spectacle of a wedding that she was forced to play a part in, the £30 million wedding. She's flipped every gift on its head.
Yeah.
So it has become an abuse.
Yeah.
And it has all been for her to present herself as a victim. Had the Queen said half in, half out, you would have had no complaints about the royal family. You'd have had none of this rubbish that has gone on, none of the inventions and twisting perfectly normal conversations, so that all of a sudden they become justification for pleading racism. And I mean, she is a very destructive, manipulative, and a mischievous person. And they know it.
Well, that's the thing. Could they have not seen some signs? I mean, I know they didn't want, Prince Philip did not want Meghan to marry, or Harry to marry Meghan, right? There are things that they knew. What was it that they allowed it to then just go forward? Because what, Harry was just so dead set for
Harry, I was told that Harry told his grandparents they would be accused of racism if they didn't allow the marriage. He was dead set on it. And the Queen tried to point out to him that what Prince Philip was saying had merit. You know, he could have her, but just not marry her and let it run its course, which is something that many parents and grandparents in situations like that, they say, you know, let it run its course and don't break up now, but you can't marry her. But Harry wanted to marry her because, and there were two reasons why the marriage was allowed to proceed. The first was that she was a woman of color.
Okay.
Because they understood that that would play very well in because Britain is now a very multiracial, multicultural, diverse society. And it would play well in the Commonwealth, because the Commonwealth is the largest political organization except for the United Nations. Most of the citizens of the Commonwealth are people of color. Most of them are not white.
Right.
So they understood it would play very well. And I have to say, as a Jamaican, I knew how well it would play as well. My builder, Carlisle, who features in the ITV program that was done on the restoration of Castle Goring, he said to me, he said, Lady C, we don't care what she is, as long as Yardy in the palace, that's all that counts. And you know, and well, it was a source of great pride. And had she behaved accordingly, she would now be the most popular human being on earth. You know, because the people were eager to embrace her. And I mean, obviously, there might be a few people who were not, but there are always a few people who aren't, whatever the situation. But the vast majority of people, and the royal family they understood that, let me rephrase, had she not been a woman of color, they wouldn't have allowed the marriage. I was told that by one of the royals. Had she not been a woman of color, they would not have allowed the marriage, because they knew too much about how unsuitable a character she was. But
like blackmail.
So, but she did, no, but she also deceived them into thinking that she wanted to be a part of the family, that she wanted to be a team player. She's the one who refused to remain an actress. She's the one who said, no, give me royal duties. Or as she put it, in her tacky way, she said to the Queen, use me as you will, as if the Queen were a John and she was a hooker.
Yeah. Well, I guess she was doing what she was kind of used to, in my opinion. I think that was just something that she was used to, saying things like that. But yeah, that's just so tacky, isn't it? To just say that, use me as you will. But why the rush? Why did Harry have to rush? There are allegations, there are thoughts that perhaps she lied and said that she was pregnant, because we know Eugenie was ready to get married before Harry and Meghan were, and then they ended up going before Eugenie to get married. Why was there the rush?
Well, Harry was hooked on Meghan. And Meghan, as I said, one of the two things that militated in favor of the marriage was that she was able to control Harry. She had firm control of Harry and if you listen to what he said and you read his book, she had control of him from the second date. She's the one who set up the second date. She's the one who set up the terms of the date. Listen to what he has said.
Right.
He was desperate to get married. He wanted his own friend. He had a fantasy of he would have the alternative to William and Catherine's good marriage. He would have a good marriage. They'd be the four of them. And of course, Meghan became immediately divisive. But by then he was hooked on Meghan. And he was in her thrall. He has admitted it.
Yes, he did that.
So that was the rush. The rush was that whenever she didn't get what she wanted, she would threaten to leave him, which would make him panic even more. Because, one of the effects of losing a parent below the age of 14, there are studies that have been done on it. There's a famous one that was done by the Maudsley Hospital in London, Failure to Grieve and Melancholia. And below the age of 14, and Harry was 2 weeks shy of his 13th birthday, children don't grieve the loss of a parent properly. And that sets up not only melancholia, but it also sets up the panic of being abandoned, because death is the ultimate abandonment. And Meghan was very careful to play upon Harry's fears of abandonment, to jerk his chain and get him to do what she wanted. I don't think it's working quite so well now, let me put it that way. But it's worked well enough to get him to California.
Yes.
Community property state. Of course, they have to share their debts as well as their assets. So it's not quite worked out the way she wants. So
okay. I was just going to say, because now there are reports that they're getting nervous about running out of money. Like Harry's, and what do you know about that?
They live way beyond their means. Their lifestyle is that of a half a billionaire. They live a billionaire lifestyle on a low down millionaire's budget. Harry is worth, I would have said, being generous, a maximum, everything included, of 40 million.
Okay.
But their expenditure is that of somebody who is worth $500 million. Their lifestyle is a billionaire's lifestyle. So do the math right there. It's unsustainable. And I have said all along that the figures that were being bandied about how much they were earning were rubbish. 120 million from Netflix, 30 or 40 million from Spotify, 20-something million from Penguin Random House. Anybody who is really sophisticated knows those figures were rubbish. And if you had any insight into the entertainment world at all, you knew the maximum he could have made, if everything turned out perfect, might have been a fraction of that. But there was no way those phantasmagoric sums were going into their bank account. And they didn't. And, if you do a forensic accounting of the way they move money around, they, in their last Archewell tax return, were earning interest on, I think it was $222,000. That means that's the sum that was available for most of the year. And then the 9 million that showed up magically was clearly not, it was for showing up for the period that was necessary to get the accounts over the hill, and then immediately moved out. So they are playing with maybe between, say, $8 and $12 million. That's what they're playing with. And a lot is being shoved through Archewell, as it was called, and it's now, I think they changed the name to whatever else. I don't remember, but the detail doesn't count. The principle is what counts. So they have assets that are liquid and disposable of between 8 and 12 million. That's not very much to be living, and that's only a fraction. I think you get the point.
Well, I think there's security. Isn't there security about 10 million a year or something like that?
I would no. It might. No. They would like people to believe it's about 2 million a year. Well, whatever it is, they don't want to have to spend that money.
I read their security is as much as Catherine and William's security a year. Like they're spending an astronomical amount of money on their security.
I don't believe it.
No? Okay. All right. All right. So what
they would like, everything with them is bigger and better than anybody else's.
Okay. All right. So what's going to happen now with Harry? I see Harry going back and forth, back and forth. How is this sustainable? What do you see for their future and everything that you've seen since writing your book? What is going to be the end game for them? Like what happens? Because it's not going well.
I don't believe in predicting. Sorry. I'm not a fortune teller. I only say what they are and what they're about and what they have done. And I leave it at that.
Leave it at that. Well, that's
Harry is not welcome back here. It's as simple as that. Meghan is even less welcome back here. Now, of course, the king would like to have as harmonious a relationship with his son as possible, which is perfectly natural. I mean, that, a parent-child relationship is quite different from a sibling relationship. William, I am reliably informed, wants to have nothing to do with him now or ever. And they certainly don't want to have anything to do with Meghan. And neither he nor Catherine will ever forgive Meghan for the way she behaved towards their daughter, Charlotte, in the run-up to the wedding. That's a huge thing. And I know from my own experience with dumping a friend of mine of 35 years, who did something not only to me, but to my children. And I said to her, Renata, I might have been able to forgive you for doing something to me, but I'm sorry, I cannot forgive you for what you tried to do to my children. I said, this friendship is at an end. And so I get, Aurora's fur is bothering me. So I get why they don't want to have anything to do with Meghan ever. And they also don't want to have anything to do with Harry, because Harry has violated their privacy. Now, Charles is a different matter, because, there's a school of thought that Harry was born deficient as a result of his mother's severe bulimia when she was pregnant with him. And there is a school of thought that he was never quite right. Well, if that is so, you can well understand why his father will always need to cut him some slack. Because notwithstanding the public's baying for punitive consequences, if he was born defective, of course, his father needs to factor that into the equation. But his brother not only doesn't need to, has no intention of doing it. And so any notion that Harry's going to be welcomed back here, especially as long as he's with Meghan. If he were divorced from Meghan, that might open up another avenue of approach. But between now and then, not a chance.
Well, they're coming back in May for the Invictus Games, or the Invictus 10-year anniversary. Harry and Meghan, well, they say Meghan's supposed to be coming with him. So their reception won't be very well received, I'm taking.
Well, it's a photo op. It's necessary for them to royalize the brand and keep their tenuous connection with the royals, because that's the only basis upon which they have any desirability and prestige. And of course, let's see what happens with his father. And I'm certainly not going to be unsupportive of any decision his father makes with regard to him.
Okay.
But having said that, people here don't want to see either of them. And they certainly don't want to see her. And but remember, Meghan and Harry are very good at teasing news stories. So, is she coming? Is she not? Getting a whole dynamic going. They've been manipulating press interest for years now, and they're very good at it. But it's not behooving them. It might create sound and fury, but it's not converting into bucks.
Okay, but if the king embraces Harry with Meghan still on board, does he not risk losing favor with the public that don't like Harry and Meghan? Although I can see, him wanting to still have his son in his life. There's a risk there, is there not?
Yes, but it's a mistake to think that the king has been a pushover, or that he has not been practicing loving detachment and quiet, tough love. It's a mistake. But any person in the public eye has to be aware of the fact that you have your private life, but you have your public life. And the public is not entitled to know everything. And, it's a very difficult situation for the king.
Yeah.
And the fact that he has not been well has complicated matters. But even that, Harry was given 12 minutes with his father. He was at Clarence House for a total of 45 minutes. And he was given 12 minutes with his father. His father still left. Harry could have gone to Sandringham. Of course, Harry really couldn't have gone to Sandringham, because the following day he had to be in the United States for the football awards.
That's right, yeah.
But Harry really cared about the father and not been so concerned about making sure he wasn't booed, because remember, this came fast and furious after the whole business in Jamaica with the Bob Marley One Love, and where they were booed, and nobody spoke to her unless they absolutely had to at the Terra Nova party. And some of the comments that people said about her,
and that dress,
I can't repeat them on air. And I mean, people of color using color to show what a hypocrite she was.
That's exactly right.
But I'm sure you can imagine some of the things that they said. You
can't tell us just one. Just one.
I can use one or two words like red and Heba.
Red.
Jamaicans will know what Heba is.
Oh, okay. So they get it. So they get the Jamaicans get Meghan because they see her perpetrating. They see how she's not authentic in her biracial, her mom, and some of that.
Her use of the color card. They
Yes.
see right through it. I mean,
Okay, good.
she's not the first poser who's used this. And also, most people have seen Imitation of Life. I mean,
Yes.
Meghan's doing a Susan Kona.
Absolutely. I've referenced that several times on my channel. It just is going to repeat itself. So, speaking of imitation of life, so the mother passed away because the daughter didn't want to acknowledge her Black mother because she passed as white. How do you feel this is going to play? Well, I don't want to ask you about the future, but you look at the King and Thomas Markle Sr., they're both the grandparents of these children. Do you think the King could somehow intervene with Thomas Markle Sr. and like help him? Because I think
But
they're both in the same boat.
so
And
the king, first of all, remember the king is not in a very strong position because Harry and Meghan have accused him of being a racist. Let's remember that. That's
that's
the first
true.
thing.
That's true. Okay.
Also, the king cannot force somebody he barely speaks to behave decently or sensibly with regard to his father-in-law or her father. And also, the king and the late queen tried at the very outset to get Meghan to reconcile with her father.
Yes.
And Meghan said she would write to him. They wanted her to go to him.
Okay.
She
Okay.
refused to go to him. They also wanted her to be in direct touch with him if she didn't go. No, she would write him a letter. And by her own admission, she wrote what they thought was going to be a conciliatory letter leading to a reconciliation. And she has subsequently admitted she wrote that letter to make sure there would never be a reconciliation.
That's right. Because she wrote some pretty nasty things in that letter. So the king cannot reach out to Thomas Markle Sr., though. I know, I just feel
So
like,
it's, each of us in a situation like that needs to do what we think is appropriate.
yeah,
And I can see the pros and contras for both reaching out and not reaching out.
okay,
And the fact of the matter is that Harry has never met Thomas Markle.
right.
And the king would open himself to a great deal of criticism if
Mhm.
he reached out to Thomas Markle. And if he doesn't reach out to Thomas Markle, he opens himself to some criticism as well.
Yeah,
It's Meghan has created situations not only within the family and the dynamic of the family, but even with where the children are concerned and where the existence and where the provenance of the children are concerned. She has created situations that, on the face of it, look like no-win situations for the royal family.
that's right.
I actually, because
Mhm.
of course, I had a very narcissistic, malignant mother. So
Mhm.
I have, having survived her, I understand that personality type and how they set things up. And it took me a very long time when my mother stole a vast sum of money from my sisters and me
Mm.
and sold extremely valuable property for next to nothing just because she could. And it took me 4 months practically spend it in bed. I was so distraught. To come up with the way to rectify the matter. And I did come up with it with the help of a cousin of mine. And we did redress it to the extent that we could. And I actually have thought of ways that the king and William could flip this whole situation so that Meghan is the one who ends up in the lose-lose situation. But
It-
I'm not going to be saying what it is, and I'm not approaching them with my ideas. I'm not their advisors.
Okay.
I also am autonomous, and I need to retain my autonomy. But
Mm.
I can tell you there is a way that they can flip the whole thing. But Meghan is very clever. She sets up situations for people where it's a lose-lose for them. But I know how they could turn it around. So it's a win-win for them and a lose-lose for her. But I'm
Because
not.
yes, I hear that there's certain things that they know that Megan has done that they can't come out and say, or that they will come out and say because they have to get in front of this. Is that in reference? Is this what you're talking about? I mean, I know that's something that they're concerned about, being complicit
Well,
to something that Megan has done.
Meghan has set up that situation
Yeah,
so that if they do, they die. If they don't, they still die. But
right.
but I know how it can be flipped.
Well, shoot, you need to tell us, Lady C. Tell somebody to tell them because we can't
I'm not telling. I certainly wouldn't be telling the public. And I'm
be
not.
off the record because I want to know because I can't figure
I
it out.
wouldn't tell anybody because it's these things need to be handled with delicacy. But but believe me, Meghan's very clever, but she's not as clever as she thinks she is.
So there's a way that she can not have this situation explode where it's hurtful to the
She
monarch.
she has created situations where it looks as if the royal family, that no matter what they do,
Right?
it's the wrong thing, that they
Yeah,
will lose no matter what.
right.
But take it from me, they have options and alternatives, but they might figure it out for
Yeah,
themselves.
that's true. They could. They could
You
figure it
know,
out for themselves. I mean, I know they have that bullying report that has never been released,
it
which I
can't be.
understand. Why not?
It can't be. It can't be because all corporate entities in this country owe a duty of anonymity and
Uh, oh,
to to the participants of an investigation. They
okay.
can't. People say they can, and also they don't need to release it in any event because first of all, if they release it, the participants would become targets of the malice of Meghan, Harry, and their SS.
Okay.
And
True. Yeah.
and so there's that. But also, it would be unlawful. You cannot be a reputable state institution and you're visibly breaking the law. I
Right.
mean, how does that work?
Right. That's true.
But,
Okay.
but,
I see your
but
point.
everybody already knows that Harry and Meghan are bullies. And everybody already knows that the investigation did not exonerate them. And everybody knows that, in fact, the family then proceeded to honor Jason Knorf with the Royal Victorian Order. So
Right.
in their quiet way, they have actually got the message across that the the very whistleblower has been honored. Would he be honored if Harry and Meghan had been exonerated? Of course he wouldn't have been.
Yeah. I'm glad he spoke. I'm glad that did get out because that was good information. Very good information that he let come out because there were certain things that I think a lot of people in the States don't know about when it comes to what happened in the court system in England about Meghan's lies and the things that he exposed with his emails, which he is not no longer working for the Waleses, correct?
He no
He's
longer works for the royal family.
Okay.
No.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so I want to leave you with this question about uh I know you don't talk about the future, but I need to somehow get some insight into the Harry and Meghan saga and their marriage and everything that is happening, because you mentioned that Harry understands a little bit more now. I think he sees Meghan's ways, so to speak. I think he's kind of onto who she is, but that's still his wife, the mother of these children.
Mother of his children. She's the lawful mother of his children.
Well, the lawful, yes, yes. These children, there's a big controversy around that, and I just am feeling Harry is going to be at the losing end of everything. I've been in an international custody battle myself, and I just don't see things ending well for Harry. I think he's put himself in a predicament. And I'm almost thinking that the king sees it as well, because that's his son. And I'm sure he's probably very concerned about his son's well-being, considering his use of drugs and, the way he copes.
Ayahuasca.
Right.
Superb weed.
Oh, you got a good one there. What do you think? I mean, I feel Harry is detrimental to his life, his future. Everything is at a crosshairs right now.
Well, the English side of the family, and this is even in the original version of my book as well, thought that if the marriage came to an end in a particular sort of way, that this might be terminal for Harry. But the continental relations have an even darker scenario that they have articulated, which I cannot go into. But there is definitely there's always been the fear that Harry would be so destroyed by the end of it.
Yeah.
That he would act upon matters in certain very unfortunate ways.
Yes. I thought the same.
So, yeah. So you know what I'm saying.
Yes, I do. Yeah. I'm
actually not the one who said it. They're the ones who said it.
Yes.
And I'm just repeating what I was told they've said. And, so of course, this is something that a parent would be concerned about.
Right.
And, I get the whole situation. I feel it's extremely unfortunate. And I feel it's just such a waste. So unnecessary. Except, of course, pigs don't fly. And the only way that pig was going to fly was if it became an aeroplane. And it's not an aeroplane. It's a pig. It's as simple as that. And, so.
Yeah.
But for being a pig, it could have reached great heights. Instead of which, it's scrumming around in the gutter.
Would you write another book, maybe around more comings and goings of Harry and Meghan ever again, possibly maybe 5 years from now? Just out of curiosity.
No idea. Absolutely no idea.
No idea.
If it became desirable and appropriate, I write things that I feel have a purpose and a use, or that interest me somehow. I mean, I took 10 months in which to update this book, which was a bit of a nightmare, but I did it. And, I'm not sure I would want to revisit it again, but we don't know how the story is going to end. All we know is that it is constant turbulence and contradiction and really very unnecessary and destructive.
Very destructive. And that's why it's going to keep going and keep going, because this will not, in my opinion, end well. I don't see how, even with the divorce. I mean, Harry's going back and forth, like he's going to continue going back and forth. The children are never going to know their cousins, the in-laws. I just don't see this being sustainable.
But my dear, Harry doesn't go back and forth with any frequency. I mean, he wanted to go back and forth more, and many doors were shut in his face. He tried to reestablish and pick up a lot of his life here, and people didn't want to know. You know, it's sort of very difficult to ask a Christian to embrace Judas and Iscariot before the hanging.
Yes, okay.
After they knew about the betrayal.
Yes.
And you know, also everybody knows that no matter what you say to Harry, ultimately it ends up on page 6 or with Gayle King via Meghan.
Right.
And, you know, it's people in our sort of world don't want their private lives as fodder for a hustler and a whole load of cheap jerks.
That's exactly. You tell them, lady. See, that's it, right, for a hustler, right? Like, that's what exactly it is. This is like, this is not fodder for you. Like, yeah, people don't want to be bothered with this because this is just a bunch of unnecessary drama. And Harry is on the losing end of it. I mean, imagine he's trying to get back within the royal circles and he can't now. It's like the King Edward and Wallace Simpson all over again, because we know what their life was like, right? I mean, they just didn't really have much of a life once they were exiled. It's pretty similar.
Well, actually, no. In fairness to them, because I knew them slightly, and my stepmother-in-law knew them very well, and a family friend of mine was his ADC during the Second World War in Nassau. And my sister-in-law's grandfather, Lord Beaverbrook, was one of his big supporters at the time of the abdication. And a great friend of mine, Renée Sylvain, who was the head of the American hospital in Paris when Edward VIII died, and when Wallace was, declining. So I have from no.
So how is it different?
She never wanted to marry him, and he is the one who wanted to marry her. And her worst nightmare came true because she wanted to be the maîtresse en titre for the king, and she wanted to stay with her husband, and the whole thing unraveled terribly. But they led a very regal life. They were not hustling with third-rate or even first-rate media people the way Meghan and Harry do. You know, they wrote their autobiographies, which is perfectly acceptable and to be expected at that level of society. But they weren't busy giving interviews needlessly and trashing anybody. When they gave interviews, they didn't trash anybody. You know, they had dignity, and they had a very regal way of life.
Right.
Meghan have a very Kardashian, tacky way of life. You know,
they're going to be partnering with them. Have you heard they're going to be partnering with the Kardashians?
Well, is Meghan going to do a Kim? I hope she's going to be very Brazilian about it all.
Right. Let me see. I think she has done a Kim already. It just has to be leaked.
Oh, Well,
she's already done it.
mm.
You said you hope she's very Brazilian about it.
I think on that note, my dear, we should
Good.
call it home.
We're gonna leave it there. That was good. You got away with words, lady. See, I just love you. You are something else with words. You are something else.